When I was asked to interview an elder, I was filled with joy and glee. I'm so honored that I had the privilege to interview and connect with Mike. If I would have described Mike in one word, it would be hero. Mike always has these amazing stories about his life that are inspiring. It's truly a message that should be passed down to others, with permission, of course.
I think I'm an easygoing, gentle person. Uh, I try to listen to people. A lot of my life has been involved with dealing with the public, and it's really important to hear what other people have to say before you open your mouth. So I'm kind of tuned into other people as best as I can, and I'm a survivor. I feel like I've dealt with issues, not that I've always wanted to deal with these issues, but I've had to deal with these issues, and I've moved on, and that's how I kind of lived my life. In my early years in public school, like I went to a public school for the first 6 years, and in junior high school, I was a very comfortable student. I had lots of friends. I was a year older than the boys that I grew up with on the street that I grew up with. So I had to make new friends at school, and I was able to do that quite successfully. I had a couple of buddies from the fourth grade on that we were really close to, and we kind of cut up and had a lot of fun in class and things like that. In junior high school, I was really very socially adept, but this is before I kind of got involved. Let's put it this way: this is before I kind of evolved sexually. Before it was kind of pre-adolescence, when everybody's glands were working in overtime, mine included. I kind of got lost. So high school for me was like a disastrous period. Um, boys were talking about things, and I kind of wasn't on that page, and I had no alternative. So I kind of was very lonely and quiet during my high school years. Well, I grew up in Brooklyn, New York. Uh, um, in a very family-oriented family. Uh, we were all very close. We all lived within, 2 miles of my grandparents' house. We'd all to get together every Sunday and see each other. My family and my father and my grandparents were very involved in the synagogue in our area. Um, but it was a time of holding on to the past and not knowing what the future was going to bring. It was like people in my area, they all went to an Orthodox synagogue. They seemed on the outside to be espousing Orthodox Judaism, but they were so far from that. We went to Hebrew school 4 days a week, and we had to be there at services on Saturday. It was in school again on Sunday. So, at the beginning, how did I survive? I wanted to be straight to survive because that's all I saw around me. Straight people were surviving. They had relationships, they had families, they had homes. And I spent 5 years in therapy. I wouldn't call it the traditional conversion therapy that people talk about today. It wasn't based on spirituality and all of that other stuff. It was based upon not changing your homosexuality, but acting heterosexual, whatever that means. And it was a torturous road. I went through it all, and I came out gay at the other end because it doesn't work. We know it doesn't work. So I survived by adjusting myself to what I had to deal with. At first, I didn't want to be gay. So I said, I can just be Mike Ronas. Why do I have to be gay or straight? I just want to be myself. Why do I need a label?
As a youth, I am very fortunate that I had the privilege to come out without any tolerance from my loved ones and justify myself as a proud Latino gay man. There's a quote Mike said that I think summarizes and gives a clarification to us his story. And I needed to move on and be a gay man in a gay world with gay friends and gay relationships. And I made that move. And the next thing you know, Mike and his husband came down to South Florida and been with Compass for years. I personally wanted to say we are all so thankful and grateful for Mike and his contribution for Compass Community Center as he volunteers and is a mentor of Compass Youth Group. Mike is a survivor just like many of us, including myself.
You know, we're talking about coming out and everything. Unintended consequences. The AIDS horror is like an unintended consequence of bringing the gay community together. I mean, that was an awful time. I really had a problem acting out sexually. I was really out of control. Even after a while in my relationship, I could get lost. Not as what I was out of it, but it was a problem. And I was in a group in New York called Sexual Compulsives Anonymous. It was like an AA group for people that were like addicted to sex. And this was right at the time of AIDS, and people were like dying all over the place. I lost so many of my friends during that period because, unfortunately, this disease was all around us. But with all of that, it brought men together, and I think it was a very significant step in the gay movement.
The views, perspectives, and beliefs of coming out were perceived as an error that we couldn't be who we truly are. If we did, we would be a mistake, and that was our fault.
My brother came out for me. He told my mother and father that I was gay. I never got to it. And it was I was like 30 already, so it was like time, you know. And every time I'd tell somebody I was gay, because I had lots of straight friends, they'd say, Mike, you were the only person that didn't know you were gay. We all know you were gay. So that I came out before I officially came out, kind of just because this is the person that I was.
Yeah.
I mean, with the therapy that I had, this 5 years of conversion, you know. You know how it started? I was walking along on my day off, and I walked into, of all places, an Episcopal bookstore. Why I was there, I don't know. And on the shelf was a book. I still have it at home. Changing Male Homosexuality. I said, this is the book for me. This is going to change everything. And after a few days of going through it and reading all these case studies, I called the doctor up. And he kind of sat down with me, and we had a program. Then I would meet a girl, we'd get together, she'd fall in love with me, or she liked me. And the next thing you know, we're in my psychiatrist's office deciding on what our problem was so we could be more intimate. Because it's like, I could only take this so far, you know. Very early on after my coming out, I met Vincent. And he's fantastic, you know. He's a very understanding, very caring, very giving. He's much nicer than the person.
In this time period, society seems to be changing their ways.
Well, I don't think of myself as a fighter, but the most significant thing that affected my life was gay marriage. I've been in a relationship for like 38 years. We've had a domestic partnership agreement, license, and that was available to us. We lived together, but we couldn't get married. We lived in an apartment where I always had to pay the rent check because the landlord wouldn't accept his name on the lease. I couldn't get insurance for him because we weren't married, things like that. And we really couldn't, affirm our relationship in a very public sort of way like everybody else can. So that was a very big affirmation and step for me, I think.
I'm so excited. This is my first time voting. I'm going through those double doors, walking down the stairs, and starting my way towards that election post with my Chanel bag, Coach bag, and black thigh high boots. I will vote for my people, the people who will make a change and reverse whatever obnoxious actions that have been done to our community. I wanted to share with you this message to you beautiful people out there. It's up to you if you consider it, but I believe this advice can be the turning point to someone's happily ever after. And some of this you may already know. Be yourself, be unique, be authentic, and express yourself with all your love. But most importantly, be you. No one else is more qualified at being you than yourself.
I think you have to be yourself in whatever path you you strike out for, and you have to be true to yourself. Um, and sometimes to move forward, you have to do things that are uncomfortable. You know, it's like when you learn things, when we all have to, like, when you're learning how to do something, you take one step and it's very difficult. And then you have to make another step and you've got to turn a little bit and it's more difficult. And then you take a third step, even more difficult. But when you go back and you still do that first step again, it's not so bad.
Yeah.
So those challenges kind of are a learning process, and you get better as you do these things.
In conclusion, there's a quote that I wanted to recite that Mike stated in our interview. The unintended consequences of something, you lose everything, but you move forward and you gain something. That's truly touching and inspiring, and honestly the truth. Heroes and survivors like Mike and the rest of the elders have fought to get to where we are now. We had a little setback in the last few years, but it's time to bring this legacy back on track and build it brighter and stronger than ever before with our next generation, the youth. What future do you envision for the LGBT community in America and around the world?
Well, in general, it's like a forward motion, I think. But it's like 2 steps forward, step it back, and I kind of feel like now we're going with that step back, even though we have the thrust to move forward, you know.
Together, we will prove the LGBT community shouldn't be belittled, disgraced, discredited as human beings just like the rest of society, but most importantly, underestimated. I love you all. Thank you so much.